What up, Wizards? It's Dev, Mtg. We like it a magic, and I'm pretty excited for this one because as I record this, we're only about 16 hours away from Crimson Vow spoiler season starting. In case you didn't know, I'm going to be watching the spoiler reveal at 12 noon Eastern time on my Twitch channel. Get over there if you want to check that out. But another reason I'm super excited is because I get to do my absolute favorite kind of video. I get to live my dreams and design magic cards. Who doesn't like doing that? Let's talk today about 10 cards that I want to see in Crimson Vow.
They say a man who represents himself as a fool for a client. Well, with God as my witness, I am that fool.
And we're back. Now, hey, in case you're new around here and you've never seen this kind of video out of me before, we usually do this about once a year, and it's just good, clean fun. We have a lot of fun with it. It's reasonably consequence-free, but it's also a good way to get a conversation going, a barometer reading about what exactly we even expect from a given set. Now, before we jump in, I just want to clear a couple things up. First and foremost, not a spoiler video. This isn't a preview video. That should be very obvious to anybody that's watched the first minute, but people seem to get very confused every time I do one of these videos. These cards aren't real. I made them up. And second of all, I don't expect any of these cards to be printed. Especially not like verbatim, word for word. That's not the point of the video. I don't expect any of these cards to get printed, although we have come really close in the past, and that always feels good. But the point is more to discuss, again, what we expect from the themes and the mechanics of the set and how I feel it would be neat if Wizards employed those themes and mechanics in this way or another. But again, we can use the comments section as kind of a jumping off point to discuss what we all want from this set. So before I ramble on too much further, let's go ahead and get into these cards. Here's the top 10 cards I want to see this set. I sip the coffee between takes. People get, I've seen the comments, people get like really anxious about the coffee, like drink the coffee, just drink the coffee. Like I drink it between takes. I'm not gonna, unless I have a comedic point to make, which would be made better by taking a long sip of coffee in between. I don't drink the coffee on camera. I'm sorry. But anyway, let's start by talking about werewolves, right? Like this is the vampire set, but we expect some werewolf tribe support in this set somehow. And we got some vampires in the first set and some humans, some zombies, all that stuff. So like, I expect there to be some more wolves in this set. And what werewolves needs to really succeed is a lot. It needs to happen. But one thing I think they really need is a good one drop. They have a couple of one drops, not quite playable or anything, but they do have a couple of one drops they can play right now. They're terrible. So let's try and fix that a little bit by giving wolves a version of Champion of the Perished, right? Now this isn't quite as good as Champion of the Perished, but it's still a pretty sweet one drop for the wolves deck, you know, on turn 2. It's basically like you got a 1-mana 2/2, which is good. It's really unbelievable, but this can be a 3/3 or even a 4/4 by turn 3, depending on how your curve works out. And most importantly, it'll flip Tovolar a lot faster than that deck can reliably flip Tovolar now, right? Like Tovolar has a triggered ability where if you have 3 werewolves in play, you basically get to just flip all your guys over regardless of whether it's night or not. And this, a solid, strong one drop will really help that deck do that as quickly as possible. It could also help a Wolves deck go underneath the Alrund's Epiphany decks and the other slow decks in the format. And I think that's another thing that the Werewolves tribe needs right now because it feels kind of like a mid-range tribal deck. And that just spins its wheels in the current climate. You have to be able to go underneath these, you know, big time 7, 8, 9, 10 mana decks. And this is one of the better ways to do that, is to give them a potent one drop that pays them off for curving out. Now let's go to number 9 though, which is my annual attempt to make a sweeper of some kind. And that sweeper is usually black. We're usually trying to make a black sweeper. And in this case, it's no different. Here's Mass Terror. When you read the text, you'll get the joke, I imagine. It's just terror, but on every creature for 4 mana. So it's like definitely strictly worse than, say, Damnation or something, but it's still a very playable and standard 4 mana sweeper. I've made a lot of sweepers for these videos here on the channel, and I honestly sympathize with Wizards a little bit when it comes to designing these, because it can be tough to brew up a fresh feeling, you know, new, innovative, interesting board wipe. But sometimes, on the other hand, simplicity counts for a lot. And this is a video about what I want in Standard. And what I want is not necessarily a fresh, innovative, new, complicated, weird-looking sweeper, like a Sphere of Annihilation or something. Instead, what I want is a simplistic, easy to understand 4 mana sweeper with a reasonable downside. And that's what I think we have here. But number 8, let's look at probably maybe the strongest card of the video. I'll probably say that about a couple of cards, but this card is pretty strong here. So let's take a look at Frightening. We've seen Lightning, Bolt, and Blightning, so I figured this would be cute. But anyway, the actual text box is what matters here. It's effectively 3 mana at sorcery speed for 4 damage to a target, which is pretty good. It's kind of good already because you can hit opponents in the face with it. But it's also a discard effect. Now, I think this would be super great in the current standard environment. You can recast this with like the red adversary, which I think is good, bloodthirsty adversary, which is a good line to go with the card. I would really like a relatively low-costed burn spell that can hit an opponent's face, but can also take out creatures like Goldspan Dragon, an important target for this. But in any case, I want a reasonably costed, burn spell in standard that can go face and isn't terrible. is what I'd like, but also thinking a spell like this would help increase or lower, I guess, the clock in terms of the amount of turns that Is It Epiphany decks have against decks like this, like red, black vampires or whatever. But also punish them by making them discard cards. So maybe they have to discard the Galvanic Iteration or something. That means that eventually that backs them up by a turn in doing the combo, perhaps. Or maybe if they're down to 1 card, they have to discard their Ulrin's Epiphany, like stuff like that. I think would really matter in this format. And even though I think this card is very powerful, to say the least, I don't think that it's unreasonably powerful. And it would really help out some of these red-black aggro decks like vampires that are trying to, have the ability to actually close games out. I think it's actually like a fair intersection between like Char and Blightning. So I think this card like could exist and it wouldn't actually be like too much for this card to exist. But anyway, I don't know how many people are actually going to like challenge me on how good that card's too good, but actually I really don't think it is. But anyway, moving on to like one of my favorite cards in the whole video. There's probably like 3 cards that are my favorite card that are kind of tied, but this is maybe my favorite one to design in the whole video. It's a real Gavin Verhey kind of card, right? So let's take a look at Deceivers Wardrobe. And please get the joke. It's Sailor Moon. It's her disguise pin. I'll just explain the joke to you. But anyway, this was my wife's idea. This art, good job. Thank you, Brittany. Anyway, this is an equipment. And it says, I'm going to read this one out because it's kind of a lot of text. Equipped creature has. This creature cannot be blocked except by creatures with the same name as it. When Deceiver's Wardrobe becomes equipped creature becomes a copy of target creature, except it isn't legendary if the target of this ability is legendary, and you can equip 4/4. So kind of a sort of a Helm of the Host in a way, but this can target your opponent's creatures, which is cool. Now, obviously, if it targets one of your creatures, that first line of text basically just says this creature can't be blocked. Depending, right? Like, it's pretty likely your opponent's going to be playing a Goldspan Dragon. So, like, if you turn your little guy into a Goldspan Dragon or something, because you already control a Goldspan Dragon, then it's very likely that your opponent also may have one of those. So it's not a guarantee your guy goes through unblocked or anything, but it will help. But honestly, I think a 4-mana equipment that costs 4 to equip can have this creature can't be blocked on it. That'd be fine. And this is like a slightly worse version for flavor reasons of this creature can't be blocked. But this is probably good for all kinds of stupid tricks, whether you're doing it to your opponent's dudes or you're copying your own legends and stuff. Like imagine this in an Orvar deck or something. So there's obviously a lot you can do with this, and in Commander would be a freaking bop. So print something like this and I'll be pretty happy. A companion piece to Helm of the Host, if you will. All right, so what are we at? Number 6? Yeah, we're at number 6. The problem I'm trying to solve with this card, before I even show it to you, is that Vampires needs a decent 1-drop. Yeah, I know they have Pit Fighter, but we'd really like another decent 1-drop for that deck. And Zombies needs another good 1-drop. It's got a few, right? It's got Dungeon Crawler, it's got Champion of the Perished. But the way Champion of the Perished works, you really want to be able to play out a flood of cheap zombies as quickly as possible in order to make your champion as big as possible. So I feel like that deck could use another playable 1-drop and just play like 12 1-drops. It'd be fine, right? But in any case, I'm trying to solve 1-drop problems for both of those decks. And my question is, can a zombie vampire exist? Look, get at me in the comment section, because I actually have a feeling this is going to start like a debate that shouldn't be as heated as it might become. But is there anything stopping a zombie from being a vampire and vice versa? Is there at all? I mean, they're both undead, so maybe there's a thing there, but maybe anybody that's more into cryptozoology, I guess that's what you'd call it. Anybody that's more into it than me and knows more of the quote-unquote scientifics, because there's no real scientifics to it. Probably going to take some heat for that statement. But is there any actual reason a zombie can't also be a vampire? I don't think so. Here's this. It's a zombie, but it's got vampire blood flowing through it. Isn't that what makes a vampire a vampire? The blood? So does a zombie just not have any blood? Is that why? I think they do. I think some zombies do. Canonically, I think zombies can have blood. I don't know. Anyway, this is a vampire zombie. It's also a legend, so you can't play like too many of them. But it is a 1-mana 1/1 indestructible, and I just kind of want to see how that goes out. I want to see how that plays out in standard, right? Like sometimes the opponent will have a Toski, and it's like, holy crap, how do I get around a 1/1 indestructible? It's like the first turn that it's up and untapped and can block before it's forced to attack. It's like, 1-mana 1/1 indestructible is screwing up my entire combat plan. So I'm not actually sure that a 1-mana 1/1 indestructible is super smart, but we do have a lot of like -X tricks in the format right now. We've got like crippling fear to kill this. We've got exile effects to do something about this. It's not like it's completely unkillable or anything, but I still kind of like the idea of just a dorky little 1-mana 1/1 indestructible that gets boosts from, tribal anthems and stuff like that. Or maybe you can put +1/+1 counters on it. Maybe there's ways to give it like death touch or something else that's like really intimidating with indestructible. So I'm not sure this card could ever actually exist, because I think a 1-mana 1/1 indestructible is actually very good in terms of rate, like very good in terms of rate. So I'm not sure the card could exist, but I would like to somehow solve, here's the point of this. I would again like to somehow solve the vampires and zombies both need a 1-drop conundrum, and I'd like to kill 2 birds with one stone here. So that's kind of what I figured. Oh, by the way, if you want to know why her name is Peacekeeper, I have this whole stupid lore in my head where like the vampires are having the wedding and they're going to kill all the humans, and they have to make some sort of treaty with the zombies and the people who make the zombies on Innistrad. So there's some sort of like pact that they have together, right? So since she is both zombie and vampire, she has been elected to be like the keeper of the pact. You see how stupid it is? But when you make cards, especially legends sometimes, I guess you have to come up with cringy stories, but that's what was going through my mind. That's why she's called that. All right, favorite card number 2. I know a lot of people in this set want to see Blood Artist come back, myself included. Mark Rosewater has already teased that there's going to be a popular, powerful creature that gets a reprint in this set. I really want it to be Blood Artist, like so freaking bad. It might be like Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. There's a couple of things it could be. I don't think it's Snapcaster Mage. In any case, I don't necessarily, if we didn't get Blood Artist, I wouldn't be super happy about that. But if instead we got Flood Artist, I would be freaking ecstatic. It's kind of designed based around a lot of my experiences on the Arena client. This is a 2-mana 2/2 human warlock with menace. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you may put that card into your graveyard. Whenever a land card goes to your graveyard from anywhere, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Whenever Flood Artist deals combat damage to a player, you may return target land card from your graveyard to your hand. You see how that all works out? If you don't need lands, you ditch them. Put them in your graveyard at the beginning of your upkeep. You don't have to draw that garbage. Put it in your graveyard and get a little benefit off of it. But if you need lands at some point later in the game, Flood Artist can get them for you too by doing combat damage. And yes, if you want to make like a combo deck where, say you Ren in 7, for instance, and use her +1 to get like 2 or 3 lands in your hand, and then you discard all of those lands somehow and bolt your opponent. Like, yeah, it's, you can do some cool things. It's in the right color combinations. So, there's fun stuff you could do with this. Maybe in Life from the Loam. Hey, Life from the Loam. In older formats, this could go just chef's kiss really, really well with and help you close out games or just stay alive if that's what you're trying to do. So I like it. I want it to exist. It never, ever will, but I need it. I'm sick of drawing lands. But number 4 is my other favorite card. It's my third and final favorite card in this video. But of course, I had to save, like all the legends you've been waiting for. You've been waiting all video. Like, where's Thalia? Where's Soarin? Where's Olivia? They're all coming in the top 3. They're just wait. But my final card, that is my actual maybe for real favorite card, and also a card that almost certainly can't exist, is Sanguine Sanctuary. Now it's a land, you can tap it to add 1, you can tap it and pay a life to add a black, or you can pay a black, tap it, and sack a creature to drain the opponent for 1. And I know that doesn't look like much, but originally this was tap. Didn't actually cost black to activate the last ability on it at all. And I realized that was probably insanely powerful. So I've decided to throw a black mana onto that, and I still think this card is very powerful. But actually, in the beginning, this card wasn't anything like this. I started designing this card, and then after about 15 minutes, I realized that I had just discovered Phyrexian Tower. And I was like, Phyrexian Tower already exists. That card's not getting reprinted anytime soon. But this card, I think, it's not as good as Phyrexian Tower. But I actually think this is still really good, especially when compared to something like, say, Ramunap Ruins, which was banned in Standard for a while. So that card was really, really good. And obviously, you can turn sacrificing a creature into an upside. I mean, sacrifice Shambling Gas, sacrifice Eye Twitch, drain your opponent. But I do like that at least it's not a land you can just tap for a damage every single turn. At least it's not that. At least you have to have some sort of board presence to activate this. But I do think this card is actually probably the most powerful card in the video so far. Maybe the 1/1 Indestructible is deceptively powerful, but I think this is actually altogether the most powerful card you'll see in the entire video. So it might not look like much, but I'm telling you, this card is ridiculous and will probably never get printed in any form, but I want it really bad. By the way, yes, this is where they're getting married. It's supposed to be where they're getting married. But anyway, we gotta look at Soarin next, don't we? Let's go ahead and hit the top 3 with all the familiar faces that you've been waiting on. And this one's just called Soarin. I couldn't come up with a name. I thought maybe Soarin, uninvited guest, but I didn't do it. It's just called Soarin for this one. But anyway, this is a 3-mana walker. It's one in Orzhov colors for a 2 loyalty planeswalker. You can +1 it to have a creature gain either lifelink or death touch till end of turn. You can -1 it to create a 1/1 vampire dude, and whenever that creature dies, you draw a card and gain a life, or lose a life rather. And then you can -4 so here. And as an additional cost to activate it, you have to sacrifice a creature. But then you exile target creature or planeswalker. Now, the reason that I made this card the way I did is because I want an Aristocrat's Planeswalker. I want it like so bad, man. Like an Aristocrat's Planeswalker probably in some form already exists, and again to some extent or another, but I want a cheap, decent one in Standard. And even though it takes a couple of turns to get to the ultimate, it's still not unreasonable to get to this ultimate, and again, sacrificing a dude could easily be turned into an upside. If you have creatures out in your Aristocrats deck, then the +1 is pretty good, and you should have creatures out in your Aristocrats deck. And by the way, maybe that should be lifelink or death touch until your next turn. But I thought that might be a little bit strong on a 3-mana walker. But just a 3-mana walker that goes ahead and puts a dude out to block for it, draws a card when it dies. Like, I actually think that's kind of good enough. Even if all you do with this is -2 or -1 it, -1 it. It's probably good enough, but like -1, +1, -1, -1. These are all, like, I think, reasonable lines you could take with this card that aren't in any way broken. I don't think this Soarin is actually intensely good or anything like that, but I do think this is another deceptively powerful card that would do some cool stuff for us in Standard. But again, I don't think this is unreasonable by any stretch, but I have been wrong before. Now, are you ready for Thalia? I'm sure you are. That's the whole reason you're watching the video, or at least, like, if a few thousand people watch this video, there's probably a couple of hundred people that are specifically waiting on Thalia. Now, the last I heard, when we last saw Thalia, she was being, like, willingly possessed by the Geist of St. Trav. So we gotta represent that on a card, I think. Or at least I think that's what we're gonna do. Here is Thalia Possessed by Divinity, a 3-mana, that's one in Orzhov, that's one in Azorius colors, for a 3/4 legendary human soldier. Whenever a player casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, exile that spell. Instants and sorceries cost 1 more to cast. When Thalia attacks, create a 2/2 blue and white spirit creature token with flying that's tapped and attacking. Sack it at end of combat. So the spirit that you create when you attack with your Geist of St. Trapped has gotten smaller. But it's also lost hexproof. Not the spirit itself, but the creature that creates the spirit. Maybe I'm getting a little esoteric here, but still, this is supposed to be a take on both cards, just kind of jammed into one card. And this is 3 mana for 5 power and stacks in stats on attacks. But there's a few reasons I designed the card this way. This is so your opponent can't kill it with a Dragon's Fire unless they have like a Goldspan Dragon in their hand or something. It goes above bolt effects like Frostbite and whatnot. So I think that's one important thing that the card needs to have if it's going to succeed against Soarin's Epiphany decks. Oh yeah, that's why the card exists. It's trying to beat Soarin's Epiphany decks. In case you didn't realize that. But yeah, your opponent can't foretell cards and then play them because it just exiles them, basically counters them. So, an Soarin's Epiphany that they foretell, they basically can never play again after if you resolve this and keep it on the battlefield. That said, if they have one in their hand, it effectively costs them 8 mana to cast, so you should be able to go underneath them with this and maybe a Redain or two even. So I want the card to exist, but I think this is also another one of the subtly most powerful cards in the video. It might not even be subtle. This might just be obviously unbelievably powerful. But honestly, after really thinking about it, I'm not sure it's as powerful as it appears. I mean, just one removal spell can kill this. And I know dice to removal isn't the best argument in the world, and I've even tried to make it to where it doesn't die to every removal spell. But even those Epiphany players have the option of Dragons firing it with Goldspan Dragon backup. Like, it's not completely unkillable, and most matchups are going to have a resource that does something about it. So I don't think, again, that this is a totally unreasonable card, but it is a very powerful and annoying card. Let's go ahead and hit number 1 here. And I actually have 2 cards to show you because I started designing this card as just like kind of a joke, kind of the big dumb story mythic in the set that's red and will never see any play, right? Like the bulk mythic red rare enchantment of the set. And I ended up with the Red Wedding, which is actually an unbelievably powerful card. I don't think I hit bulk on this at all, but originally this was a 5 mana double red and 3 colorless enchantment. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you get 2 1/1 vampires. And then at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacks a creature, which is good. It's pretty good text. And whenever a creature you control dies, you exile the top card of your library, play that card this turn. The flavor here is that obviously a lot of people are going to die at the wedding. But the people that put the wedding on must be getting some benefit for the people dying. So that's where the drawing cards, the red way, comes in. And I think this card would actually be pretty good, although not amazing. At 5 mana, I think 5 mana might be a bit much. It's not like it's Doom Foretold or anything. So instead, I went with a card that I ended up liking a lot more. And I'm just going to call it the Wedding. It doesn't have to be the Red Wedding because it's not the bulk red mythic of the set. That was part of the joke. I'm just going to call this one the Wedding. It's a saga that's Rakdos. It costs 2, a black, and a red. On Chapter 1, you create 2 1/1 black vampire creature tokens. On Chapter 2, each player chooses 2 creatures they control and then sacrifices the rest. And then on Chapter 3, creatures you control gain black-red tap, gain control of target creature for as long as you control this creature. So what I was going for here was sort of the old Olivia Voldaren flavor of being able to turn things into vampires for a mana cost and a tap, and then steal them for as long as you control her. But this goes about it in a slightly different way. But this does a lot on all the various chapters, right? A little board presence on the first chapter. The second chapter is not quite a board wipe, and I honestly don't think it's enough of a board wipe to be very good in that function, right? It's mostly a flavor board wipe, but against like the mono white decks that just vomit their hand onto the table on like turn 2, probably be pretty decent. But the last chapter is really where it's at. Especially considering when it goes off, you presumably have 2 creatures left. Although it does give your opponent plenty of time to set up for this inevitability. It's not like it's completely unfair, right? Your opponent has plenty of time to remove your dudes and make sure you can't do this. But in any case, you have your mana open when the third chapter goes off, and you can immediately tap those creatures if you want to gain control of your opponent's stuff. So I actually don't think this is an unbelievably powerful or broken saga, especially again, because it gives your opponent time to react to most of the chapters on it. Some of the chapters aren't actually very good. 4 mana for 2 1/1s on the first chapter, So again, I don't think this card is unreasonable either, but I like where we landed in terms of the flavor, and I know that everyone that's designing Magic cards as a hobby is probably coming up with a card for the wedding. So, and that's probably true of Thalia and Soarin too. So just like all these other cards, let me know how you would design a wedding between, Olivia and Edgar in the comments section down there. But this is what I landed on, and I gotta say, I like it. I am sitting in my own house, bobbing my own head to my own beats, but I like it. That's all I got for this one. Let me edit it and put it out before the first batch of spoilers drops. I think we're only going to get this out like 12 hours before the first batch drops. So that'll be fun. But anyway, I hope you had fun watching this video because that's what it's all about. But do all of this stuff if you feel like doing that. We play some Magic on Twitch and again, be doing a watch party, 12 Eastern, the 28th of October on Twitch to be watching the Wizard stream. We're going to be watching the Wizard stream on stream. So check that out if you want to join in the watch party and sort of discover all these new cards together as a squad, you know. But aside from that, check out the Patreon. $1 a month is all it takes to support the channel. It supports the channel a lot. And you get to vote on content. It's the whole reason we're doing this video. The patrons wanted to see this video. In case you wanted to know what the point of the video is, the patrons wanted to see it. That's a good point. As far as I'm concerned. But aside from that, just like and subscribe, do all that stuff. Spoiler season's literally tomorrow. So you should be subscribed to make sure you see those videos and you're recommended. But aside from that, I guess I'm going to get out of here. Love you guys. I'll catch you guys later. I'm Deb from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind. I will sip the coffee on camera again. Delicious. There is coffee in here, I promise.